Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dad's Gone Crypto, the show where you learn how to survive this modern financial jungle with memes, digital money, and questionable amounts of caffeine. Today's episode is a big one because today I'm going to walk you through exactly how to live on crypto and actually replace your bank account. And I'm not talking theory, I'm talking real apps, real steps, and real dad life scenarios. Paying bills, buying groceries, paying the babysitter, getting paid, saving for the kids' college fund, taxes, borrowing for emergency expenses. We're covering it all. And by the end of this episode, you'll have your own Crypto Dad banking system you can literally start setting up today. Now, just for a quick disclaimer though, I'm going to be talking about some different apps. I'm going to be talking about some different systems out there. You need to do your own research. I'm laying out some examples here. There's a lot of different ways to go about this. I personally use quite a few of these. However, do your own research and don't take any advice to heart because I'm just some crazy guy on the internet. All right, buckle up, dads. Grab your coffee, grab your hardware wallet, and let's go. So you might ask, why does this matter? Why would a dad or anyone for that matter actually want to live fully on crypto without a bank anyway? So before I show you how to replace a bank, let's talk a little bit about that why. Why might you want to kick Wells Fargo out the door and start your own bank, basically, right? So, reason number one, banks freeze your money. Have you ever had a debit card decline on you for no apparent reason? There's money in there, but it declines just because maybe they're suspecting fraud for some reason or something. It happens all the time. And I can tell you that's never happened with any of my crypto. Reason number two, banks charge fees for everything, literally for breathing. They charge maintenance fees, overdraft fees, because we felt like it fees. Crypto does not care if it's a Sunday or a holiday. They're not charging you fees. Yeah, you might have some transactional costs, but I'm going to show you how to keep those very, very low. Now, number three, you control your money. Think about it. Have you ever had a paycheck held up because of a weird banking issue, a transfer blocked, a wire delayed? If you've ever had any of these things, you know exactly how powerless banks can make you feel. And crypto puts the control back in your hands, literally. Now, it does come with some risks because you're not using the warm and fuzzy banking system that's, somebody steals your money, well, they might just reimburse you. In crypto, you have to accept some personal responsibility in order to have full control of your money. Now, reason number four is very important. That's plain old inflation. Think about it. Your kid's soccer cleats a few years ago cost $40. Now they're $70. Bitcoin was invented to fix that problem. Bitcoin takes away those inflationary fiat dollars and replaces it with something that increases with value over time. And reason number five, you're future-proofing your family. Your kids are going to grow up in a world where using crypto is normal. You're not just learning this for yourself, you're building a skill set that your kids are going to need in their lifetimes as well. And actually, this stuff is really coming on quickly. And I'll tell you what, within the next few years, I think a lot of people are going to be living this bankless society that I'm talking about here. So what do you really need to go bankless? I can tell you there's different levels of banklessness, right? You want to go completely bank free, you're going to have to probably figure out a way to get your paycheck online. But you can go, sort of bank free where you're still using a bank to get your paychecks, but you're transferring it up, to an exchange and that kind of thing. But if you want to go full on bank free, these are kind of the things you're going to need. You're going to need an exchange somewhere to be able to exchange your fiat for crypto. Coinbase, Kraken, Cash App, PayPal. Those are some here in the US. There's tons of them all over the world. You're also going to need stable coins. Now, I prefer USDC because it is fully 100% backed dollar for dollar. I also use USD1, USDT. There's a lot of them out there. So you got to pick your stable coin. And obviously you can diversify into a number of stable coins, but you think about your stable coins as like your checking account, right? Because that's a plain old 1-for-1 US dollar to crypto. Number three, you're going to need self-custody wallets. If you've been in crypto for any time, you probably have quite a few self-custody wallets. But just a few examples, you're going to need MetaMask maybe, Phantom, Rabby wallet, Ledger, Trezor, Keystone. There's a whole bunch, some hardware, some software. No matter what, though, you really need some self-custody wallets. And we'll get into that a little deeper. And then, of course, if you want to work within Bitcoin and be able to make super cheap Bitcoin payments across the entire world, you're going to want a Lightning wallet. Those are like Phoenix, Mun, Breeze, Cash App, again, which is kind of limited. Cash App isn't really a self-custody wallet, but it does allow you to do transactions on the Lightning Network and cash out. So not a bad idea. Another one, Wallet of Satoshi, is a good one. Super, super easy to use. And then number 5, in order to stay bank free, you're going to want a crypto debit card. Basically allows you to put stable coins on it and spend it just like your native currency anywhere in the world. You're going to be able to get those, Coinbase, Crypto.com, BitPay. Those are some that are, more standard, kind of attached to exchanges. And then you've got other ones like Cast and Spritz Finance. Those are ones that are crypto native and give you the ability to use that card anywhere in the world to spend your stable coins just like fiat. And then we need a bill pay service, right? You got to be able to pay your mortgage, utilities, all that kind of thing. So that bill pay service is very important. One of my favorites that's out there is Spritz Finance. You can actually set up basically, it's like a crypto banking account. You pay your bills there, use USDC, and they send the checks to pay your bills for you. And then number 7, you got to think about emergencies, right? Sometimes you're going to need emergency cash. And in crypto, you've got borrowing platforms. And borrowing platforms can be more than just emergency cash. Let's think about it this way. Once you've saved up quite a bit of Bitcoin, you can actually take out loans against that Bitcoin, use that to pay your bills and do whatever you want without paying taxes on it, because you're taking out a loan rather than actually converting crypto and spending crypto. That's how the rich do it. They live off their loans and repay them back. So, they don't have to pay taxes on that kind of stuff. So it's a great idea. But some of those borrowing platforms like Aave, Compound, MakerDAO, Coinbase Borrow, Unchained, there's a ton of them out there. So we'll talk about those as well. Now, you add all those 7 steps together, and congratulations, you've just replaced Wells Fargo with software. So let's talk about a real world scenario here. Let's say you want to fully bring all your money into crypto and really not deal with bank accounts anymore. So let's just take a budget for that, right? Let's say your take home pay $5,000 a month. Maybe your bills are $3,200 of that. Your groceries, $1,200. And then you're able to squeak out maybe $600 a month in savings on there, right? So now let's convert that to crypto. You bring that in, let's say that $3,200 that's for the bills, that goes directly to your USDC checking account, right? And that's what's going to be used through Spritz Finance or some other method like that in order to pay your bills. Then you've got the $1,200 USDC that are your general expenses, groceries, gas, going out to dinner, that kind of thing. Now, that can just go directly to your debit card. You can put that in your Cast account, for instance, and spend it just like US dollars. And you can also, if you're into wanting to be able to send Bitcoin back and forth or use the Lightning Network. The Lightning Network is really starting to take off in a lot of different countries in the world. It's starting to take off here in the US as well, where you can actually just use your phone, use an app on your phone in a Lightning enabled store and pay with Bitcoin right there. So maybe you put some of that money into the Lightning Network wallet that you have, and you put some on your debit card, and you're good to go. So then you've got your $600 of savings. And let's say you want to break that up a little bit. Maybe you want to put a few hundred of that into Bitcoin as like a long-term savings account, maybe a few hundred of it into ETH or some other tokens to, give a little more risk, but a little more gain. And that's your long-term savings. Later in the episode, I'm going to show you how to borrow against that Bitcoin or ETH, your long-term savings, without selling it. So you get the long-term upside of your tokens and you don't pay taxes for selling your crypto. So we'll use that budget that we just laid out kind of as our platform going through here. But now we're going to talk about the full Crypto Dad banking system, okay? This is basically to set up a self-custody banking system and kind of get out of fiat as much as possible. Now, this is the heavy section. Follow these steps in order, and you'll be that much closer to becoming your own bank. So the first thing is you got to get your money into crypto. Now, there's a few different ways to do that. Number one, obviously, you could get paid in crypto. Some employers are doing this already, paying out in Bitcoin. There's other platforms out there that allow you to take your regular fiat job and actually do direct deposits into crypto accounts. Some of those platforms are Bitwage, Deal, and that's DEEL, Deal, and Papaya Global. Those are actually global payroll systems that allow employers to pay you in cryptocurrencies rather than in your native fiat. And a lot of remote workplaces and tech companies are going to this kind of thing because it's a whole heck of a lot easier to pay in crypto. They can do their payroll. If they've got people working in all different countries, they can do their payroll in seconds by sending out crypto payments rather than having to go through the rigmarole of, regular conversions to fiat in every country. Now, with that kind of thing, you can either have your pay go fully in, or a lot of those do options where they'll let you put maybe 10%, 20%, 50%, whatever percentage you want directly into crypto and keep some of it in your standard bank account. I know a lot of people would have a hard time with just basically getting rid of their standard bank account altogether. So that gives you an option to be able to put some in crypto, keep some in the regular bank account. So you've got a little access to quick cash if you need it. But that brings up another point that we're going to talk to in a little bit, where you can get quick cash out of crypto as well. Now, option B, let's say you don't have access to any of those platforms. Your employers won't send you a direct deposit. Well, you can just go ahead and take your normal paycheck into your normal bank like you normally do, and then transfer some of that or all of it through an exchange back up into crypto. So, Coinbase, Kraken, again, depending on where you live, there's a bunch of different exchanges. You can use those exchanges to transfer your money directly into crypto. I believe that Spritz Finance also does that. They'll allow you to transfer, directly in. They're a on and off ramp. You can transfer in and use your debit card right from them. And they also have their bill pay too. So very cool stuff. So let's say, going back to our example, now you've transferred, let's say you transferred all your money in, or you were direct deposited in. So now you're going to use that $5,000, buy $3,200 in USDC to use as your checking account, as we said, put that $1,200 on one of your debit cards to use as your general expenses, as we said, and then put that last, $600 worth of savings into something like Bitcoin for your long-term savings. Again, maybe ETH, maybe some other tokens if you want to take a little more risk. So it's basically like your long-term savings account. Now, step 2 is moving your USDC into your spending wallets. Those wallets could be Coinbase wallets, could be MetaMask. If you want to use MetaMask on Base Network, it's super cheap and works very well with USDC. Phantom for Solana, that's a really fast wallet. And basically, when you go to move those, if you're using USDC, the transfer fees are less than a penny on Base. So you can definitely move your money without a bunch of fees. And whatever spending wallet you use is what you're going to connect with some of these other platforms in order to pay your bills or use a debit card, that kind of thing. Now, step 3 is being able to spend using your crypto. So that's, again, we're going back to the crypto debit card. Now, there's great options within crypto debit cards. If you want to go more the centralized exchange route, Coinbase has a great Visa card that allows you to spend your USDC. It gives you a % back in Bitcoin. So while you're spending, you're actually earning Bitcoin. If you're spending USDC or USD in the United States, there's 0 fees for it. And it basically works everywhere that Visa works. Crypto.com also has a Visa, same kind of thing. They allow you to withdraw cash at ATMs, and actually the Coinbase one does as well. The BitPay card is another one where you can basically mix crypto, gift cards, Apple Pay, does it all. And then we go to the more decentralized versions, which would be Cast. It's KAST.xyz if you want to go check them out. And they allow you to set up a debit card that literally works pretty much anywhere in the world. I think it works in 160 different countries. You can use it just like a credit card with no international fees and that kind of thing. So that's a really big deal if you travel. And also, it's a really big deal if you want to be able to spend your money, again, in a more decentralized fashion. Rather than having it on a centralized exchange, you keep your money in your own hardware wallets and you just put a little bit into the Cast card for whenever you want to spend it. I think that's a great option personally. And now another option for spending your crypto is with the Bitcoin Lightning Network, as we had said. So Lightning lets you make instant Bitcoin payments with basically zero fees. I mean, it's like 0.00001 cent or something to send. it's tiny. You can use that any local shop or store, that is Lightning enabled, basically that has the Lightning payment gateway. You can basically use Bitcoin to buy your coffee, your gas, anything that you want. You tip somebody, you want to send money to your kids or family or friends across the world, you can do all that with the Lightning Network. And that's cool too, because it allows you to keep your money in Bitcoin if you're interested. If you want your money in USDC, it's stable, right? If you're putting some of that money into Bitcoin with the hopes that, over time, Bitcoin's going to increase in value, you can actually, keep your money in Bitcoin, kind of like that savings account, keep a checking side for that to use with the Lightning Network and send money fast and easy all over the place. Now, if you do want to use the Lightning Network, you're going to need a Lightning wallet. And some of those, the Phoenix wallet is super easy. It's self-custody. It's got automatic channels, and it's super easy for daily use. And that goes also for the wallet of Satoshi. I've used that one. That one's super cool. Super, super easy to use. You've got the Mun wallet. That's MUUN wallet. That is a hybrid on-chain plus Lightning Network wallet. Super user-friendly, and that one's really great for beginners as well. You've got the Breeze wallet. That actually has a POS terminal included, and it's great, if you're running a side business and that kind of thing. You can actually use the Breeze wallet to accept payments on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. And then, if you want to use something that's a little more mainstream, you've got Cash App. Cash App, it's not full self-custody, but it's excellent for simple Lightning payments. It's a really great starter wallet for people that are just trying to get into, debanking themselves. A real world example using the Lightning wallets. These things are starting to pop up all over the place, and I've actually used it. It's super cool. Walk into a coffee shop, get your coffee that normally, you probably wouldn't want to put a few dollar expense on a credit card, but with the Lightning Network, you make your connection. It's lightning fast, as they say, a tiny, tiny fee, and you're out the door with your coffee. Now, step 4 for banking and crypto, you've got to be able to pay your bills, right? So here you might want to use something like Spritz Finance. With them, you can keep your crypto on a self-custody wallet and still pay your mortgage, car loan, utilities, credit card bills, student loans, whatever you've got out there, right? You basically set up your payment. Let's say for the month, that all came out to $2,400, right? So you use your self-custody wallet, move that $2,400 to Spritz, and Spritz pays all those bills for you in their native fiat currency. And then you've got other ones like BitRefill that allows you to do direct bill pay as well. And it also does something kind of cool with gift cards where you can actually buy gift cards on BitRefill for like Walmart, Amazon. I mean, pretty much all these big companies. You can go on there with crypto, buy a gift card, and then, use that gift card in the store. Kind of a cool option as well. Now we come to step 5, and that is saving and earning yield in crypto. Now, you've got money in your bank account, right? That money in your bank account, let's say you've got it in a high yield savings account, and maybe you're making a few percent. Definitely nothing to write home about. Now, with yield in crypto, there's all different ways you can go about earning yield in crypto. And some you can earn a ton of yield, but they're super risky. But then you've got some very safe options that are, they're going to earn you more than you're going to earn in that bank account. So these savings and yield earning opportunities, we're going to break that down to a few categories here. Now, number 1, you've got your long-term savings, right? And for me, it's Bitcoin. This is your emergency backup fund. It's your long-term wealth. It's your kids' savings accounts. It's basically your hedge against inflation. So, we'll go back to that example where, we were trying to save maybe, $600 a month. Depending on your risk appetite, maybe 300 of that is going into Bitcoin. And that's just going to go straight to your hardware wallet. Not going to touch it. It's your long-term savings or absolute emergency if you absolutely have to get to it. Hopefully you don't. Put that in your hardware wallet and let it sit there. 10 years from now, could have some absolutely crazy growth is the idea there. And then number 2 is your medium-term savings, right? So that maybe you can get a little more playful with. Doesn't have to just be Bitcoin. Maybe you're going to use Ethereum. Maybe you're going to use some other tokens in that medium medium-term savings. And again, you're probably in that type of thing. You're probably going to be looking at market conditions, deciding what gives you the best upside in the medium term. So, you're going to put whatever you didn't put in Bitcoin out of that $600 savings, maybe you're going to put it in there, build yourself a little portfolio for these medium-term savings, maybe some ETH, maybe some more risky stuff, and go from there. And then number 3, we're going to talk about stablecoin yield. So this is basically your bank account, right? So your bank account, like I said, earning you a few percent. Well, you can do the same thing in crypto. Ondo Finance does tokenized US treasuries. Coinbase has USDC staking rewards. So you're holding USDC on Coinbase, you can earn rewards from that. Aave Lending is another one that'll give you staking rewards for your USDC. If you're able to put a few $1,000s a year into something like that, it's earning at a better rate than you're most likely getting from a bank, and you're keeping it all in crypto. And it's there in case you really need it. So that's how to save in crypto, replacing that savings account. Now let's talk about step 6, which is borrowing against your crypto. Now, this is where wealthy people have been winning for a very long time in traditional markets, and anybody can do this very easily in Bitcoin. So instead of selling your Bitcoin, you borrow against it. Keep the Bitcoin, let it have its long-term growth, and you avoid a taxable event. So when you need to spend some money, instead of paying taxes on that Bitcoin sale, you're borrowing against it, using that money for what you need it for in the real world, and slowly paying that back and allowing your Bitcoin to grow. Now, to me, this is very important because I see it as how you become a long-term wealth machine. Now, some of the best borrowing platforms, you've got Aave, that's great for USDC, ETH. You've got Compound, MakerDAO. Coinbase Borrow is a very simple, easy to use one. And again, that's a more centralized deal. And you've got Unchained Capital, which does Bitcoin collateral loans. All great options depending on what your needs are. So as a real world example, let's say you need to borrow against your crypto, right? Let's say you've saved 15 grand in Bitcoin. Your car needs new tires, brakes. You don't have that extra cash laying around. You really need to sell some Bitcoin, but man, you don't want to sell it. So you deposit some of that Bitcoin into Aave, let's say. You borrow that money that you need in USDC to pay for those car repairs, and you're borrowing at a pretty small APR depending on how much collateral you put up, but 3-5% APR. You use that money to pay for the repairs, and you repay that money back to the loan over the next few months with the monthly savings that we've been talking about. And the best part is you still own all your Bitcoin, right? You never actually sold your Bitcoin, you just borrowed against it. So no taxable event, your Bitcoin keeps on growing. And that's how crypto replaces the bank's loan department. So let's use a bigger example here. Let's say you need to buy a car, right? Maybe you've saved up 50 grand worth of Bitcoin. Your car's in bad shape. You want to get a new car, but hey, you don't feel like taking out a loan. Maybe you can get by with a used car. So let's say you've got that $50,000 in Bitcoin sitting there, but man, you don't want to sell that Bitcoin to go buy a car. The car is going to depreciate while Bitcoin's probably going to keep going up over the years, right? So you don't want to do that. So instead, you can upload that $50,000 worth of Bitcoin into a platform like Aave or Unchained, for instance. You use that as your collateral and you borrow the $20,000 off of that you need to buy the car. You still own that $50,000 worth of Bitcoin. You just took a $20,000 loan against it. So now you didn't have the taxable event of selling that $20,000 in Bitcoin. You were able to buy your car and you kept your Bitcoin. So as you repay that loan, your Bitcoin continues to grow. Let's say Bitcoin doubles in price over the next few years. Well, you benefit because you never sold. Now, with those examples, there's something to keep in mind. When you collateralize these loans, you don't really want to borrow more than 30 or 40% of your crypto value. The reasoning behind that, number one, you're going to get a better APR. And number two, it's going to avoid liquidation. Because let's say you took out like a 70% loan to value and Bitcoin crashes. Well, you're going to have to repay that collateral very quickly or risk liquidating your entire position. So instead of that, keep it reasonable. Borrow 30, 40% of the value of that crypto, pay it back over time. Very low chance that you're going to have any type of a liquidation event in that scenario. And that brings us to step 7. Taxes, the one thing that nobody ever wants to deal with, right? So if you're spending your Bitcoin or your ETH, you're spending your crypto, that's taxable. If you're spending USDC, that's a one-to-one transaction, so there's no tax there. And borrowing against crypto is not taxable. So that brings us back to the advantages of using, a crypto debit card that's spending in USDC or borrowing against your Bitcoin, so you're not paying taxes on those transactions. When it comes time to do your taxes, if you don't want your accountant to absolutely hate you, there's a lot of cool apps out there. There's Coin Tracker, there's Coinly, there's Coin Ledger. Any of those will help you keep track of all your transactions and make life a lot easier when you go to see your accountant at tax time. So now that we've talked about how to do it, let's talk about a few real life scenarios, right? So let's say you want to pay your kids' allowance in crypto. I think it's a great idea because teach your kids how to use crypto now and, get them financially aware of what's going on in the world and how to budget their money. You want to pay your kids their $20 allowance, send them that $20 in crypto and walk them through all these steps, have them save some of that crypto so that long term they can see their money growing, and short term have a little debit card for them there so that they can actually spend some of their allowance as well. Another scenario, how about a grocery run? You go to that Lightning enabled store, buy your groceries, scan your Lightning card, and boom, paid out the door. You used some Bitcoin and you didn't need your bank at all. Now, what about, you need to buy some home improvement goods and you're running over to Home Depot? You could always buy a gift card on BitRefill and use it instantly at Home Depot or wherever it is that you're buying your lumber, whatever else you need for your dad's projects. Let's say, though, that maybe you need some emergency cash. Well, any of those Visa cards we were just talking about are going to allow you to go ahead and make an ATM withdrawal. So you can actually turn that crypto into cash instantly at pretty much any ATM. Now, of course, with all of this, we do need to talk about risks and how to avoid them. So some of the risks that come along with becoming your own bank are basically, you're now fully responsible for that money. If you have it in a bank account, the bank takes some of that responsibility, or quite a bit of it actually. But if you've got it in your own wallets, now you're taking on the full responsibility and the full control. So don't keep everything in hot wallets. Only use hot wallets for what you're immediately going to need. Use hardware wallets for your savings and anything that you're not going to need, this month. And as I stated before, keep that borrowing to, under 30 or 40% of the collateral that you have so that you don't run into a liquidation problem. Also, when you're doing this, you probably want to have more than one debit card, right? Just in case something goes wrong. So, in my opinion, get debit cards from a few of these different platforms and exchanges. That way you've always got access to your crypto, even if something goes wrong with one of them. And finally, the biggest risk, don't FOMO the grocery money into meme coins. If all your money's in crypto, it can be really tempting to do some crazy things. So you got to remember that's your mortgage or that's your grocery money. So don't throw it away on the next shiny thing in crypto. All right, so finally, let's do a quick checklist here that you can reference, and you can go back through the video later to find all the answers to all these things. So if you want to be the Bankless Dad, you need your USDC checking wallet. You need a Bitcoin savings vault. You're going to want that Lightning wallet. You're going to want crypto debit cards. You definitely need a bill pay method. You may want a borrowing option. You're probably going to need that tax tracker, and you definitely 100% want hardware wallets. And with that checklist, you can run a full bank right in your pocket. All right, dads, so that's how you can live 100% on crypto. Replace your bank, spend daily, borrow smart, save long term, and future-proof your entire family. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys. The material and information presented in this recording are for entertainment purposes only. Do not misconstrue what you hear as investment or trading advice. Always do your own research. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by the guests on this recording are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of DadsGoneCrypto or its hosts.